Hi there. In this video we're going to see how evasive spear phishing gigs work and how they are different from non-evasive spear phishing gigs. But before we talk about this, I need to have a specific disclaimer. The fish I'm going to show are directed towards myself. I'm not phishing anyone, and I'm not inciting to exploiting anyone's accounts for profit or non-profit purposes. I'm a security consultant. I do this for a living, and I happen to be pretty good at that, at least somebody says. So this is for educational purposes only, and it makes sense if you think that you can fight what you don't know. So in order to fight bad actors, we need to know how they act and how they reach their targets. And this is one of the techniques that are very much used against real world organizations. So I hope you guys don't block my video, because that will make me really mad. With that being said, the difference between evasive and non-evasive spearfish is that in evasive gigs, your purpose is to basically evade the company's email defenses. So your purpose is to slip through defenses without need for the client to whitelist your domain, like a real-world adversary would do. So the focus is both on how effective the email defenses are and on security awareness of the client's users. With non-evasive spear phishing gigs, the focus is mostly on security awareness, so it's not really a big deal if your domain needs to be whitelisted. So for this reason, evasive spear phishing gigs are often included in red teaming exercises, while non-evasive spear phishing gigs are more of a pen testing offer. With that being said, I'm going to demo a tool called SquarePhish that uses QR codes to perform a phishing campaign. This is the GitHub repo of the tool that we're going to use. Now, in evasive spear phishing gigs, we normally use EvilGNX, but in this case I could use it for specific peculiarities with the client's environment that made it pretty much impossible, and that was the only solution I could find to deliver the campaign. So basically this tool uses QR codes to grab the user's credentials So this is the default email that the victim receives from SquarePhish that asks the victim to scan this QR code embedded in the email to receive a new Microsoft Authenticator token with the pretext that the existing one has expired. So when the victim scans this QR code with their phone, they're gonna hit the phishing server that's gonna provide them with a new MFA code. Here's an example. They're gonna enter add the following Microsoft Online page, and once they do that, the phishing server will grab their credentials that are going to give us access to their account. Of course, all this is a simulation, so keep that in mind. So in order to get this to work, I created an AWS instance to host this server. And I received this IP address. Most importantly, we need to make sure we open ports 80, 443 and 8443 to the internet, and in addition to ports 53 TCP and UDP, because that's required for the configuration to work. So let's move to the instance of AWS. I already installed the tool using pip. And now let's start working on the configuration. So this configuration by default lists the Gmail SMTP server, but it can be configured with any server here. I did it with Microsoft 365 and it was very successful. You only have to make sure you follow the right settings or you're gonna have problems sending the email. That's the reason why I told you about port 8443, because we have Apache running on 443, so unless we change ports, which I don't recommend, we need to have port 8443 open to the traffic. Here you can either enter the IP address of the AWS instance or a specific domain. I'm going to configure a specific domain for us to be running this tool, so when the victim is gonna scan their QR code, they're gonna hit this domain, which is gonna provide them with a new device code. The actual email that you're gonna use needs to be changed all over the place, so here and also here, or you're gonna have failures. As for these values, we're gonna obtain a certificate from Let's Encrypt, and we're gonna enter the path to the ready files in these fields here. So let's start working on this. So first off, we need to install a series of tools. This source is a little outdated. Anyway, to install multiple tools, either use and you list them like this. Also add Y, because I hate having to answer questions when I can simply skip them like this. We're going to enable Apache 2 here with SSL. And at this point we need to restart the service. I do it another way normally, but this is the modern way of restarting a service. That's it. Before we complete the configuration, it's important to make sure that the A record points to the correct IP for our AWS instance that we just created. Let's have a look at it. We configured that in the A record, but we need to make sure that it actually points to that IP. It might take a while for the IP address to be updated here, but it looks like we let enough time pass and it propagated, so we're good to go. Once we do that, we're gonna move to the next stages, so we need to run other commands to complete this configuration before we can use the phishing server for our devious purposes. I'm joking. As we need to request an SSL certificate for our domain, we need to install the related utilities for this. I just ran this one. At this point, we're ready to request a certificate for our domain. As this configuration is gonna hit port 8443, I'm gonna use a specific subdomain called login. So our certificate will be awarded for login.itgo365.com. That's a solution to a problem that would otherwise show, which is the website will be shown as untrusted in terms of certificates, so we don't want that. Before running the following command, we need to make sure that this value here is reflected in the actual configuration, so we need to ping or nslookup the domain and make sure that we return this IP and that we have a CNAME record called login. I already created that. We need also to make sure we got port 53 both TCP and UDP open, otherwise this is not gonna succeed. This is a junk email I own. Always have throwaway emails for multiple purposes, so I don't normally care about this. So we're gonna have here login dot That will solve the problem related to the untrusted certificate that I know is gonna come up otherwise. I don't know what happened with this. Anyway, at this point I'm gonna try using a different domain for this purpose. For the same reason as the other domain, I'm gonna try and use this. This is also blacklisted because I tried to spoof SharePoint, which is pretty much Microsoft trademark, so you can use a domain like this. I also need to create a CNAME record called login because I'm gonna need that. This stands basically for 1 minute. Now we're gonna have to wait for changes to propagate as we did before. Our change did propagate, so I'm going to attempt the command again. And it worked. So now we have a website with legit certificates, so it should be able to use SSL. Another thing we need to do is to upload some template or anyway some content to be served on the website, otherwise it's not going to work. So the first thing we want to do is replace the default index.html that's in this folder with our custom template. So I'm going to remove the HTML folder because we don't need that at the moment. So now we should have this directory in var www, which is the root folder for Apache. Perfect. Now we're going to rename this folder, otherwise you're not going to be able to use it. So we recreated the HTML folder. With this being done, we can restart Apache. And this is really important, we have a working website. So this page will be what the user will be shown for a second, and will enable us to send another email with the device code. So we're good. So now we're going to work on the configuration file to start sending test emails to run a demo of this tool. So we can start filling in the stuff here, because I know where the related files are stored. They're actually in the specific directory. Either of those is fine, but we need to have a certificate key and a private key. So we're going to do this way. As for the private key, it's stored in the same directory but with a different name. So I'm going to copy paste the path from the previous line like this. So this is how you set up these two values here. Other than that, we need to fill in these details. As for the SquarePhish server, I'm going to give it the URL of the domain we just registered, and we grabbed the related certificates for. The most important thing here is this field, because this must be changed to the real account you're going to use. And the same has to be done here, otherwise you're not going to be able to send emails like this. So now we are ready to send some test emails. We can use a couple of tools to verify the level of spamminess of our email, so how suspicious and susceptible of being blocked it is. This is one tool called Pentester. Basically, you need to send an email to this customized email account. Now, for us to send an email, we need to run a specific command that looks like this. Okay, so one thing you want to make sure about is to use the right SMTP server if you want to send the email. So of course, if you want to send an email from a Yahoo account and you want to use the Gmail server, that's not going to work. Now we should be able to finally send this email through. And lo and behold, it worked. I'm baffled with that, because that's a standard email that's sent by the application, but nonetheless, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, it would probably allow the email to slip through undetected, but that wouldn't necessarily convince a user to open it and click it. More work needs to be done on crafting the email in terms of resembling an email really sent by somebody working for that organization. That's what requires a lot of work, and it's pretty time consuming, but Nonetheless, this tool is cool because if I use multiple other tools, I will have a way lower score. Okay, that's nice. Now let's send this email to a Gmail account I own or a ProtonMail account. I will decide based on whether the email ends up with spam or not. I don't have any interference from previous tests. I'm gonna use an email account I never used before for this attack. Good. Now let's try and log into this account. And here's our test email. Look that it didn't go through spam, so it looks legit. So you see what I was talking about is very standard and is not customized or tailored to a specific client as it should be, either in terms of look and especially in terms of wording of the email. But hey, it went through even in my case, and I had really a short amount of time to complete the test because I was really short, having wasted a bunch of time on a solution that didn't work. So we're gonna now scan this QR code. Sadly, I didn't come up with a solution to record my phone while doing this, so I apologize for that. But I'm gonna show you what happens using the GitHub repo as an example. So when we scan the code, we get redirected to the site. Okay, our message was triggered and the server is running and is waiting for the user to enter the device code that in the meantime was sent over. This is the device code we sent to the victim. Now I'm gonna enter it in the login page. This whole thing only lasts 15 minutes. I'm sorry I can't show you what's going on my phone. I find no way to record my phone activity while I'm using it, sadly. So now we were able to grab the authentication data for Microsoft 365 user, and we saved that into JSON file. With that, we can use a tool called refresh to turn this JSON file into refresh token and use it to search for information like usernames, passwords, and other important stuff on a specific Microsoft 365 tenant or Azure tenant. Okay, we were able to compile this Python tool. Don't understand what this error means, to be honest. I realized I actually misspelled the domain. This is only an example, and there's nothing in this tenant on purpose. This is a sample tenant that I used. But that gives you an idea on what you can accomplish with this. Alright, so I believe this is all about this tool. Alright, so that's all I need to show you about this tool, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I find this tool very interesting, very innovative, so it literally saved my ass in the latest engagement, so I wanted to show it to you guys. So hope you like it. Bye bye.